And we're ready.
Good morning, and I'm hereby calling to order the meeting of the Board of Regents for Higher Education for this date. I welcome you all and thank you again on the record for your abundant time, commitment, and mind share and heart share that you give to this endeavor that's so important to our state and all the students we serve and must continue to be able to serve through our colleges and universities. Let's start with a call of the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fleury. And with your permission, I'll take a roll call. Chair Fleury.
Here.
Regent Harris.
Here.
Regent Balducci. Oh. There you are.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Budd.
Here.
Regent Cohen.
Here.
Regent Gray Kemp.
Here.
Regent Howery.
Here.
Regent Jimenez. Absent is noted. Regent Ryan.
Here.
Regent Santiago.
Here.
Regent Wright.
Here.
Student Regent Redpath.
Here.
Student Regent Oglesby. Absence is noted. Professor Blitz.
Here.
Professor Sanker.
Here.
Commissioner Westby. Absence is noted. Commissioner Gifford. Absence is noted. Commissioner Lehman. Absence is noted. Commissioner Russell Tucker. Absence is noted. And with that, Chair Fleury, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any changes or modifications to the agenda? Comments? Hearing none. All in favor on the agenda? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Thank you. Now we know what we're doing. We now, as we have taken the liberty to do in the past, extend an invitation to those who would like to address the board. The team has worked out, I think, a fairly miraculous way to do that virtually here. And now that I put the pressure on them to execute it with the usual flawlessness, let's try it again. I know there are some who are lined up to speak. We're holding the comment period to 30 minutes. We certainly have encouraged folks to confine their remarks to 3 minutes each to leave room for as many as possible to speak, and hope they'll be able to do so. So let me now turn it to the Assistant Secretary to manage the magic.
Thank you, Chair Fleury. In addition to our 8 presenters today, we've received 3 letters from the public, which have been forwarded to the Regents in advance of this meeting. And in accordance with the FOI guidelines as amended during the pandemic, they have been posted to the CSCU website prior to the start of this meeting. And with that precursor, I'd like to welcome our first presenter, student Errol Shutko. And you may begin your comments, Errol.
Good morning. Yes, thank you. Thinking back about 3 years ago, it was my senior year of high school, and I had narrowed down my college choices into 2 options. It was either going to be Eastern or UConn. And after much consideration, I decided to choose a college where the professors would know my name and would know who I am. A college where I would have the ability to build a strong relationship with my professors and my classmates. A college with a much richer learning environment and a hands-on learning experience. Now, 3 years later, I'm glad I made the choice to attend Eastern. My journey here at Eastern has been nothing short of incredible. I truly have grown not only in an academic sense, but also as a person. And I believe that a big part of this success comes from the opportunities that I have had here. The abilities to easily go to professors' office hours and work with them one-to-one and get the best help possible. Any academic concern, question, or advice I've been able to easily solve and address with my professor and advisor, Dr. Cunningham. This summer, as I complete my junior year, I'll be starting a very competitive internship in Washington, D.C. It was a very difficult and long process to get accepted, and I don't think I could have done it without the help of the faculty, especially Dr. Cunningham, who was able to write me a letter of recommendation in such a short time. Some of the things that I love the most about Eastern are the small classes and the options that we have to do research with our professors, plus the opportunities that these small colleges give to support students' mental health, where here at Eastern, for example, most of the students are able to utilize the counseling services. These sort of characteristics make Eastern stand out from the other schools. And I believe that changing the contract will in some form hurt student learning. As it is, the faculty is doing an amazing job to support and help students like me succeed and thrive. But student needs, our needs are ever increasing, as are the demands made on us to stand out from the crowds when we enter the workforce. As a student who knows how important it is to have access to this to a very talented and up-to-date faculty, I hope that the Board of Regents will recognize the need to support the faculty at universities like Eastern, because when you support the faculties, you support students like me. And I believe that we deserve nothing less than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter is Anna Jani, or Anna Janie. And she's back in. She could test her mic and her video. And you may begin your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I actually didn't know if you were referring to me, and then I was like, perhaps she is, so I'll just give it a go. But hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Anna Jani. I just thought I'd introduce myself at the beginning. I'm a student at the Honors College of Southern Connecticut State University. I'm a psych major. I am also the public relations lead for Global Brigades at Southern, among a lot of different activities. But really, I wanted to be a part of this meeting today to talk about why I came to Southern and why I chose the Honors College over really any other college in the country. And, you know, I had a lot of pressure from people around me to apply to Yale and to go to Yale, but I knew that the Honors College was really the school that I wanted to go to because of the limited class sizes, because of the abundance of educational opportunities at the Honors College and just at Southern itself. Because I knew that within the Honors College and even within Southern, like I said, it would be a tight-knit community, that I would get to know my professors on a personal level, that I would get that close academic attention with my professors and with my peers as well. And so the deterioration of the quality of our education within the state higher education system of Connecticut must stop, because with an end to the limit of class sizes, I know that students like myself who may seem outgoing will try to blend into the class. If I'm in a class of 300, 200, even 50 students, I know that I would try to blend in and just passively complete my assignments, not really get into the meat of that education, not really try to actually learn the material, but just try to pass the class. I know that would be me. And I know that would be a lot of other students. I know I wouldn't try to connect with my professors. It would be almost impossible. I know that it would be difficult for us to reconnect once we got back, you know, in person, especially online. I know it would be really difficult for us to connect because we already feel depressed. We already feel disconnected. We already feel distanced from our faculty and from our peers due to COVID. And I know that it would be a challenge in person to do it as well with these larger class sizes. And so the Connecticut state colleges and universities must set the right example for students, that education is not about the destination, but about the journey. That is about, you know, developing ourselves into individualistic critical thinkers, that it's about the joy and the passion of learning, that the diploma at the end is obviously very important, but that in order to get there, we have to learn how to be learners. We have to know how to be students. We have to know how to do research, and we need to learn that it really is something that can be recreational for us and can be beneficial to us. It's not just about the end result. And I don't want to see our state colleges that I chose over an Ivy League to turn into these diploma mills. I don't want to see that happen. And I know that a lot of other students don't want to see that happen. And at the end of the day, the education is about us. It's about benefiting us and benefiting the faculty that we end up working with at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Kyle Dearborn, also a student at Southern. Kyle, can you test your video and your audio?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Kyle Dearborn. I am a soon-to-be graduating senior from SESU here to talk about relationships. I know that a lot about the cost of these proposals. Changing the relationship between students and faculty is a must. We need to make changes in learning immediately. I'm very concerned that people just don't get it. You don't understand what's at stake. You're putting people like us on spreadsheets. We're learning to see the world differently, to see our roles in it. It should have been a lot more engaging, especially when I was going to school. So I propose that by communication advocacy and support for union organizing profit advocacy is the only smart way to solve this problem. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Our final student is Jacob Chamberlain, a senior English major, also from Southern. Jacob, could you test your video and your audio, please? Jacob, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you test your video as well, please?
Yes, on my laptop, if I see the light is on, I don't have an option to start or stop it. Although
Okay,
it may appear.
we can hear you just fine, so you may begin your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Chamberlain. I'm a senior at SCSU. I'm an English major. I'm here today because I'm deeply concerned with what the current proposal would do to faculty and peer mentorships. Now, I, as an individual, I have benefited greatly from one-on-one relationships with professors in the English department. As of now, I've completed 2 research grants. I've been accepted to present at 2 different conferences, and I've done an internship. In each case, those opportunities were made available to me through faculty members. Not only have I not known they existed without them being brought up to me, I wouldn't have been able to complete them. I've had faculty members read my drafts. I've had them lend me their own books. I've had them speak to and hours and inside of them. There is an incredible of one-on-one mentorship at Southern. And if professors are expected to teach 5-5 instead of 4-4, or if their office hours are increased beyond an acceptable amount, if there's no support for their own research, whether it's grants or whether it's traveling to conferences, they're going to be more stressed and more burdened than they already are. Now, the amount of work they have to do is amazing as it is. And the fact that they're able to help students like me and others, I'm not the only one who's benefited from this, while also having that amount of work to do is nothing short of. The current proposal is trying to make a good situation even worse. Things are fine the way they are now. So I'm graduating this semester, but I want this culture to continue. I want future generations of students to get that same. A lot of the reason that I came to college was because I want the experience of trained professionals in their fields, people that have been teaching as long as I've been alive. Now, I can't get that anywhere else. And if you can't get that at a Connecticut State University, the value of that education is going to drop dramatically. As a taxpayer, as a citizen, As a resident of the state, my staying here depends on there being an excellent state university system. I want my children to be able to have the same experience that I did. But if we have a university system where each professors
Pam, it appears we've lost Jacob, or at least
Yeah, Jacob, we've lost your audio.
Is he at time as well, Pam?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Let's circle back to him and see if you'd like to provide more in writing as a follow-up and move forward.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ira Robin, Assistant Mathematics Professor at Southern. Dr. Robin, could you test your audio, please?
Yes, I've just tested it.
And thank you. You may begin your 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dr. Ira L. Robin, and I teach math. I'm an assistant professor at Southern Connecticut State University. Today, I want to tell you why I oppose the ATCME proposal. ATCME stands for Alignment and Timely Completion of Math and English. It sounds good, but I think it could have a detrimental impact on the education of our students. The proposal would put remedial students directly into math classes they're not qualified for, and also enroll them in non-credit classes called co-requisite classes. Today, these students take prerequisite classes until they have the skills to advance. Under this proposal, those prerequisite courses would be eliminated. So the basic idea is to replace prerequisite courses with co-requisite courses. That all sounds great until you step back from it and realize the key idea is to put students in math classes way over their heads. That sounds risky because it is. Math is hard. Students with shaky math skills often get lost right out of the gate. They struggle and get discouraged. That is not the way to help disadvantaged students. It could easily accentuate achievement gaps, not reduce them. Co-requisite support is not a cure-all. It might be a useful supplement for some students, but it can't make up for a dozen years of accumulated math deficits. Without adequate safeguards, the co-requisite classroom could foster barely disguised cheating. What happens if a student cuts the co-requisite class? Even if a co-requisite session can cram enough for a student to pass the quiz, it's highly questionable how much will be retained. Granted, there's research to support the proposal, but it is often self-serving. Success is defined as getting a student a passing grade, not whether math has been learned. That's why it's critical to put in standardized testing in conjunction with any action. We need to have an objective measure of whether the students are really learning. The research is also not specific to Connecticut. Before acting, the board should look at statistics for Connecticut prerequisite classes. Are we really doing so bad with the program in place? Could we make vast improvements leveraging new technology without having to disrupt the whole system? The proposal is set in the world before COVID and presumes close physical contact in a normal world we may never fully return to. Meanwhile, the co-requisite model is being made obsolete by the continuing rise of relatively inexpensive interactive online learning software. In conclusion, achievement disparities cannot be eliminated by allowing students into classes beyond their level and magically hoping a co-requisite course can make up the difference. It can't. Our goal should be to raise the math skills of our students, not grant them phony passing grades. No matter the action taken, the board should insist on having metrics to monitor the impact. We're coming out of a year disrupted by a pandemic and moving into a future more uncertain than usual. The prudent course is to table this proposal for at least 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Dr. Jessica Greenbaum, a sociology professor in women and gender and sexuality studies at Central.
Thank you. The following message is a condensed version of a letter signed by 14 faculty and staff across the 4 CSUs who work in the area of women, gender, and sexuality studies. We write to express our collective astonishment and dismay at the reported misogynistic comments and bullying tactics used by Chief Negotiator for the Board of Regents, Andy Kripp, in ongoing negotiations with CSU AAUP. We understand that negotiation is a process that at times can become adversarial as both sides argue in defense of their proposals. His aggressive speech and behaviors towards the CSU AAUP lead negotiator has been flagged as abusive, creating hostile workplace for all those involved in contract negotiations. We find it particularly ironic that he conducts himself in this matter while he's simultaneously pushing for faculty to be evaluated on the basis of collegiality. According to the BOR's own code of conduct, Mr. Kripp is not treating the members of the CSU AAUP with dignity, respect, and civility, and is not leading with responsibility and accountability. In response to a proposed task force to study the need for childcare among students, staff, and faculty, Mr. Kripp mocked the need for childcare using misogynistic phrase, drop to shop, implying that women only use childcare for leisure, rather than recognizing that affordable childcare is critical for recruiting and retaining faculty, staff, and students. Mr. Kripp made it clear that he possesses very limited and patriarchal clouded knowledge about the needs of women and families in the workplace and the limitations of FMLA laws and current CCSU childcare resources. Such a fact is particularly concerning during this era of COVID, where women, and particularly women of color, have been forced to leave the workplace in droves and now have the lowest workforce participation since the 1980s. Quite frankly, we are embarrassed that Mr. Kripp is serving the CSCU system as Vice President of Human Resources, and he's not fit for negotiating the important issues affecting higher education and the CSCU system today. The issue is larger than negotiations. Sexism will not be tolerated in higher education in Connecticut. We demand that Mr. Kripp make a public apology to the entire CSCU community and receive appropriate mandatory training. Mr. Kripp's behavior and willful ignorance disqualify him from representing the BOR as chief negotiator, and he is unqualified to be the Vice President of Human Resources for the Board of Regents in the Connecticut State College and University system. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Dr. Madeline Fugere, psychology professor at Eastern. Professor, could you test your audio and your video, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, your 3 minutes can begin. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Madeline Fugere, professor of psychology at Eastern Connecticut State University. I've been teaching at Eastern for 18 years. I've asked to speak with you today regarding CSU AAUP travel funding and how vital it is for both professors and their students. Attending conferences and presenting research is essential for faculty and offers profound benefits for students. The inability to attend conferences would have a disproportionately negative impact on our newer faculty colleagues and on our students. Attending conferences in our fields allows faculty to learn about a wide variety of topics, which informs our teaching across our different classes. Attending conferences also allows faculty members to learn about cutting-edge research and to incorporate these new findings into our current classes, giving our students the most up-to-date information in our fields as possible. Bringing new research into our classes inspires our students to get excited about research and informs students' own ideas for their own research projects. Travel funding is particularly crucial for faculty members who are mentoring undergraduate students presenting their own conference presentations. While at Eastern, I have mentored 12 students presenting at national and regional conferences, and most of these students would not attend or present without the support of a faculty member. Attending conferences also allows faculty members to get feedback from their peers regarding their own research prior to submitting that research for publication. and it allows faculty to network with collaborators who are working on similar areas of research. I want to strongly dispel the notion that a conference is a free trip or vacation for faculty members. When I began working at ECSU, faculty were awarded up to $1,000 for conference presentation travel. 18 years later, although the cost of attending a conference has increased substantially, we are still only eligible for $1,000 for travel for research presentations. The cost of attending a conference far exceeds that maximum $1,000 grant award. Even though I cut costs by sharing a hotel room with a colleague, the last conference I attended in February of 2020 cost almost $1,900 to attend. Conference registration and airfare alone totaled nearly $1,000. While conference registration, airfare, and hotel costs have risen dramatically, the amount of travel funding available has not risen at all. Funding for these travel grants should be increased to reflect real out-of-pocket expenses and not eliminated. Currently, faculty are spending up to $1,000 of their own money to attend conferences with access to these travel grants. Eliminating these grants would make travel to conferences prohibitively expensive, especially for new faculty members. This financial support is so crucial for new faculty members whose professional presentations are evaluated as part of their renewal and tenure portfolios. The failure to provide support for research presentations will certainly discourage qualified faculty members from accepting jobs within our system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final presenter is Dr. Robert Whitmore. He is an anthropology professor at Western. Could you test your audio, Professor Whitmore?
I'm on.
Okay, good morning. Thank you. You may begin.
All right. Greetings. I'm Rob Whittemore, Department of Social Sciences at Western Connecticut State University, and I've been a proud faculty member serving my students there for 27 years. A university is only as strong as the research it fosters. And an undergraduate's education, just like those enjoyed in postgraduate cousin institutions, not only benefits from, but depends upon the past and ongoing research conducted by its faculty with essential administrative support. Our university can attract the best of faculty and thus remain an accredited university attracting a diverse student body only if our Board of Regents recognizes what we risk if the following proposals are accepted. First, cutting back on fiscal support for research or travel to professional presentations, or canceling faculty release time for research. And second, setting aside faculty peer review as a facet of shared governance by not allowing faculty to promote colleagues who have done exemplary research and teaching. These two proposals will cut at the heart of university education, the education that you are credentialed to promise our students. This is not complex. We cannot afford to confuse efficiency, a familiar measure used in business administration, with efficacy, the ability to adhere to a desired outcome through a process that expands, indeed is expensive, protracted challenges. But as the useful adage goes, if you think education is expensive, consider ignorance. As an anthropologist, I expect my students in the social sciences to go out into the world or to go deep into their various concentration literatures in order to pursue lines of inquiry well established and unguardedly original. To foster these individual journeys, I, as their mentor, must continue to do my own research, both applied and theoretical. Thus, my relationships to my students is fundamentally more than that of a classroom-based instructor. Having the resources and opportunities to invent, to revise, to apply through practice different approaches to teaching and learning is essential for all professors. This, even as a consultant working with other faculties across the US and even overseas, I'm extending my own devotion to the ongoing education of my own WCSU students. The decisions you are facing are not simply economic or pedagogical in scope, they're deeply political. You must be aware of that. Faculty in the company of aspiring students in Connecticut adhere to a lifelong pursuit within their disciplines, provide in-class daily devotions as well as out-of-class responsibilities as advisors, federal and local grant seekers, and enlivened voices for the application of knowledge in the public interest. We want to bring our best. For us to be denied the resources that support such commitment is for you to limit our student body's future, in which Their diplomas represent more than a certificate of completion. Instead, that hard-won document should permit them to join the leaders of an innovative future. A university education that derives from the talents of a well-supported faculty is not an indulgence or a waste of taxpayers' money. It embodies the promise that you have made to all our students well into the future. Please use your commitment to efficiencies in the service of educational efficacy for the sake of our university. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Chair Flory, that concludes our public comment section.
Thank you. Thank you to the speakers for taking the time to address us today and for the thought and preparation they put into doing so so succinctly. I'd like to now request a motion to go into an executive session for discussion concerning the appointment, employment, performance, evaluation, health, or dismissal of a public officer or employee and collective bargaining. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. We're going to enter into an executive session. As usual, there are no votes taken in executive session. The regional presidents, Steinmetz, Coley, and Lambella, we'd like you to join Dr. Pritchard, Ernestine Weaver, President Gates, and the regents in the executive session we're about to enter into. So individuals may remain on this call, and the board will return here in open session after we, Pam, maybe you should guide us, lest I lead us disastrously astray here. Are we logging off and then logging into a new portal here for exec session?
Yes, that is correct. The regents and all of those senior leadership members who have been requested to join executive session will exit this meeting. It will remain open and live streamed with a message that the executive session is in process and you have received another meeting link to join that executive session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the other side
Absolutely.
of something.
And Pam, if you would check your email, your text while I'm out.
Will do. Thank you. Naomi, you're supposed to be in executive session. You're muted. Naomi, can you unmute?
Pam, I can't find the link to the executive session. I'm gonna leave.
Pam, you've got your schedule and your email on the sharing screen. Yeah, that's better. You have a busy calendar.
David, are you there?
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Hi.
Hi. Is my executive session screen still displayed?
Yes.
Okay, super. Can you can you email me your phone number? I just had a quick question for you.
Sure, I can give it to you right now, actually.
Oh, we don't want to, we're live in a
Oh.
YouTube. I'm not sure you want the world to have your phone number.
Yeah. Well, lots of people who want to sell me a renewed guarantee on my car have it.
Extended warranties on your car?
Yes, extended warranties. They like to call me 3 times a day.
Yeah. Thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to need about 5 minutes of time to make my
And
statement.
that's what I need to talk to you about.
Okay.
Matt just sent me a note, so I have a question.
Yep.
Regents, are you coming back from executive session? It appears we're coming back.
Hi again.
Mr. Chair, we've been joined by acting Commissioner Russell Tucker. I didn't know if we wanted to mention that as we get into the open meeting as well.
Hello, Commissioner. Nice to have you with us, and thank you for making the time. I know K-12 is a mighty demanding place right now. So congratulations, and thank you for taking on that role at an important time.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here and glad to see some faces that I recognize on screen. Thank you.
All right, I'll take lead from Pam as to when it's appropriate to resume.
Speaker Balducci, can you mute your line, please? And Pam, I believe we're ready. You're muted, but I believe we're ready to go back to the agenda.
We are. The executive session posting on the live stream has been removed, and we're ready to continue with the regular agenda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, those who are returning to observe the meeting, and thanks for your patience. We're about to report out what we were discussing, and as promised, we took no votes in the executive session. The discussion was limited to the matters I mentioned. They are by statute enumerated as being the appointment, employment, performance, evaluation, health, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, and collective bargaining. And we are indeed talking about the appointments of public officers or employees. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pritchard to facilitate the next section with a presentation of the recommendations. Be aware that the board is going to vote individually on each of the recommendations, and that the resolutions for those recommendations must be read into the record. So while that may seem tedious, it is necessary and appropriate, so we're going to do it. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, Chairman Fleury. So good morning, everyone. Very excited to be at this culmination point of the search for 5 CEOs for our community college campuses. For those of you who are not aware, we launched this process back in September with our advisory committee convening in late October to get the work really started on the ground. We did it all virtually, which was not easy, but well done by those who were engaged. And you will hear from the 3 regional presidents who led those searches in our very real thanks to all those who were engaged. So we will walk through each one of the recommendations, and as Chairman Fleury said, we will read a resolution after each one into the record and have a vote. Pam, can you please, I'm sorry, I don't have the notes in front of me. Can you please tell me who I'm calling on first?
You are calling on President Steinmetz.
That's what I thought. Thank you, President Steinmetz. If you'll please talk to us about Quinebaug Valley Community College.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Pritchard, Chair Fleury, Regents. it is my honor to recommend Dr. Karen Hynek as the CEO of Quinebaug Valley Community College. This recommendation reflects the feedback of the Quinebaug Valley Community College Campus Advisory Committee. Dr. Hynek currently serves as the Vice President of Academic Affairs at North Community College in Danvers, Massachusetts, a position she has held since 2014. Roles previous to this include being a Chancellor's Fellow, a Director of P through 20 and College Readiness, a Community College Dean of Academic Affairs and Student Support, a high school department chair and social studies teacher, and a community college developmental and adult basic education instructor. Dr. Hynek received her doctorate of education in educational administration from Bethel University in St. Paul, Minnesota. I just want to provide one example of her leadership and passion for equitable student success as an indication of why we're recommending her today. At a previous institution, she led a guided pathways implementation, which resulted in increasing graduation rates by 8% and significantly closing equity gaps. So my thanks really goes to Regent Holly Howery for serving on this search committee. I greatly appreciated her candor, support, and clear passion for ensuring that Quinebaug Valley Community College continues to be supported by strong student-centered leadership. And with that, it would be my pleasure to turn it back over for the resolution to be read into the record.
Thank you. And with your permission, Chair Fleury, read the resolution appointing Dr. Karen Hynek to the Quinebaug Valley Community College Campus CEO position dated March 25th, 2021. Whereas the members of the CSCU Search Committee, with the invaluable assistance of members of the Quinebaug Campus Advisory Committee, conducted a national search for a campus chief executive officer for Quinebaug Valley Community College. And whereas, having completed this search through the careful evaluation of credentials and interviews with outstanding finalist candidates, the CSCU Search Committee recommends that Dr. Karen Hynek be appointed to the position of Campus Chief Executive Officer for Quinebaug Valley Community College. And whereas the Chairman of the Board of Regents for Higher Education and the Interim President of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities concur in this recommendation, therefore be it resolved that effective July 2nd, 2021, under the terms and conditions of the CSCU Human Resources Policies for Management and Confidential Professional Personnel, as such policies may be revised from time to time, the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education affirms that Dr. Karen Hynek is hereby appointed Quinebaug Valley Community College Chief Executive Officer at the annual rate of $155,250. So copy submitted.
Thank you. Would Regent Howery like to move it?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Any further comments, questions? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. The appointment is approved. Congratulations. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Dr. Thomas Coley to speak to the recommendation for Norwalk Community College.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard, Chair Fleury, and board. I was going to say ecstatic, but I'm just very pleased to recommend Cheryl Devonish to be the board-appointed CEO for Norwalk Community College. Cheryl, Ms. Devonish has served as the interim CEO for Norwalk for 2 years. He's been an effective leader. And to that testimony, the feedback we received from the Community Advisory Committee, from faculty, staff, and students who are in great support of her candidacy. She was a top choice. She's made tremendous impact on the campus in terms of diversity, in terms of grant support, working with the foundation, and we know that she will continue in that process. While at Norwalk, she served as the Chief Operating Officer for a year, and she started at Norwalk as the Chief Diversity Officer for the campus and Equity Officer, as well as serving as Special Advisor to the President. I want to acknowledge the work of the advisory committee, and that with their comments of support, they believe that Mr. Bonish provides strong community relations and addressing enrollment challenges as well as external funding. I also want to thank Regent Aviva Budd for her steadfast commitment to the campus community, that they're well served and have the best representation of leadership and support, and helping move things forward with engaging comments and research from candidates, and it was tremendous in our deliberations with the search committee. So again, I recommend Cheryl Devonish to be the CEO for Norwalk Community College, and I think, again, Regent Budd and the advisory committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Coley. Regent Budd, would you like to move this?
I would. I so move.
I need to read it into the record first, though.
Oh, okay.
With your permission, Chair Fleury, I will read the resolution appointing Cheryl Devonish as Norwalk Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer, dated March 25th, 2021. Whereas the members of the CSCU Search Committee, with the invaluable assistance of members of the Norwalk Campus Advisory Committee, conducted a national search for a Campus Chief Executive Officer for Norwalk Community College. And whereas, having completed this search through the careful evaluation of credentials and interviews with outstanding finalist candidates, the CSCU Search Committee recommends that Cheryl Devonish be appointed to the position of Campus Chief Executive Officer for Norwalk Community College. And whereas the Chairman of the Board of Regents for Higher Education and the interim president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities concur in this recommendation, therefore be it resolved that effective June 4th, 2021, under the terms and conditions of the CSCU Human Resources Policies for Management and Confidential Professional Personnel, as such policies may be revised from time to time, the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education affirms that Cheryl Devonish is hereby appointed Norwalk Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer at the annual rate of $155,250.
Thank you. Aviva, I hope you weren't holding your breath the whole time.
Right.
Could you
I
move it?
so move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Elise. Any further commentary? Questions? All right. Well, thank you. It's great to hear about the enthusiastic embrace of this candidate among all the constituencies. We know her extraordinary work, and I'm happy to call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Okay. Motion carries. Resolution is approved. And we have a
And last but not least, I'd like to call on Dr. Jim Lombella to, and we'll have him do all one at a time. But if he would start with Asnuntuck and then move us after the vote to Naugatuck Valley and then to Tunxus, that would be great. Thank you, Jim.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Pritchard, and thank you, Chair Fleury and the board. We'll start off with Asnuntuck Community College, and I'd like to express appreciation for the work of the advisory committee members and also Regent Ari Santiago. I am honored to recommend Dr. Michelle Coach for the position of CEO at Asnuntuck Community College. Dr. Coach began her career at Asnuntuck Community College in 2010 as a biology faculty member. In her 7 years as a faculty member, she served as science coordinator, department chair, and in 2014, she was the winner of the CSCU Excellence in Teaching Award for both ACC and the CSCU system. In 2017, she became the interim dean of academic affairs. Michelle has served as the Phi Theta Kappa New England Regional Coordinator for 6 years and a Phi Theta Kappa Advisor for ACC for 8.5 years. She has been awarded numerous regional and international awards and was named a Distinguished Regional Coordinator last year. In 2019, she was appointed as the interim CEO of Asnuntuck campus, of the Asnuntuck campus. With that, I turn over for the reading of the resolution.
Thank you. And with your permission, Chair Fleury, I'll read the resolution appointing Dr. Michelle Coach as Asnuntuck Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer, dated March 25th, 2021. Whereas the members of the CSCU Search Committee, with the invaluable assistance of members of the Isnuntunk Campus Advisory Committee, conducted a national search for a campus chief executive officer for Isnuntunk Community College. And whereas, having completed this search through the careful evaluation of credentials and interviews with outstanding finalist candidates, the CSCU Search Committee recommends that Dr. Michelle Coach be appointed to the position of Campus Chief Executive Officer for Isnuntunk Community College. And whereas the Chairman of the Board of Regents for Higher Education and the Interim President of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities concur in this recommendation, therefore be it resolved that effective June 4th, 2021, under the terms and conditions of the CSCU Human Resources Policies for Management and Confidential Professional Personnel, as such policies may be revised from time to time, the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education affirms that Dr. Michelle Coach is hereby appointed as Isnuntunk Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer at the annual rate of $155,250.
Thank you. And we need a motion.
Ari?
Thank you, Joanne. Joanne's moved it. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any discussion, further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. Resolution is approved. Congratulations, Dr. Coach. We wish you abundant success. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Flory. Moving on to Naugatuck Valley Community College next. I would like to express appreciation for the work of the advisory committee members and also Regent Merle Harris. I'm honored to recommend Dr. Lisa Dresner for the position of CEO. Dr. Lisa Dresner earned her PhD in English with distinction from Loyola University, Chicago. She taught English for 15 years at Norwalk Community College, becoming a full professor in 2007 and serving as department chair and director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. In 2015, she came to Naugatuck Valley as the first associate dean of the newly merged Liberal Arts and Behavioral and Social Science Division, and in 2018 became the Dean of Academic Affairs and then interim Chief Executive Officer in 2020. A hallmark of Dr. Dresner's work at Naugatuck Valley has been her efforts to increase collaborations, resulting in her launching the International Center for Arts at Naugatuck Valley Community College. I'd like to now turn it over for the reading of the resolution. Back to Chair Fleury.
Thank you. And with your permission, Chair Fleury, I will read the resolution appointing Dr. Lisa Dresner as Naugatuck Valley Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer, dated March 25th, 2021. Whereas the members of the CSCU Search Committee, with the invaluable assistance of members of the Naugatuck Campus Advisory Committee, conducted a national search for a Campus Chief Executive Officer for Naugatuck Valley Community College. And whereas, having completed the search through the careful evaluation of credentials and interviews with outstanding finalist candidates, the CSCU Search Committee recommends that Dr. Lisa Dresner be appointed to the position of Campus Chief Executive Officer for Naugatuck Valley Community College. And whereas the Chairman of the Board of Regents for Higher Education and the Interim President of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities concur in this recommendation, therefore be it resolved that effective June 4th, 2021, under the terms and conditions of the CSCU Human Resources Policies for Management and Confidential Professional Personnel, as such policies may be revised from time to time, the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education affirms that Dr. Lisa Dresner is hereby appointed Naugatuck Valley Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer at the annual rate of $155,250.
Thank you. Who's moving this one?
I'll move it.
I'll move it. I so move.
All right, we've got a first and a second, if I can interpret it that way. Any discussion, commentary, questions? All right, thank you to all involved with the search. Really exciting candidate. And let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Hearing none, unanimously approved.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Fleury. Moving on to Tungus Community College next. I'd like to express appreciation for the work of the advisory committee members and also Regent Felice Gray Kemp. I'm honored to recommend Dr. Daryl Riome for the position of CEO. Dr. Daryl Riome is entering his 21st year of work in higher education and built a unique background in both student and academic affairs. Dr. Riome has held several leadership positions within the Connecticut State College and University system, including Director of Admissions at Middlesex Community College, Director of Advising, Counseling, and Student Retention at Tunxus Community College, as well as an Associate Dean of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management at Northwestern Connecticut Community College. Prior to his appointment as interim campus chief executive officer in May 2019, he served as the acting dean of academic affairs and the interim dean of student affairs at Tunxus Community College. Now I'd like to turn it over for the reading of the resolution.
Thank you. And with your permission on the final resolution, Chair Fleury, read the resolution appointing Dr. Daryl Riome as Tunxus Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer, dated March 25th, 2021. Whereas the members of the CSCU Search Committee, with the invaluable assistance of members of the Tunxus Campus Advisory Committee, conducted a national search for a Campus Chief Executive Officer for Tunxus Community College. And whereas, having completed this search through the careful evaluation of credentials and interviews with outstanding finalist candidates, the CSCU Search Committee recommends that Dr. Daryl Riome be appointed to the position of Campus Chief Executive Officer for Tunxus Community College. And whereas the Chairman of the Board of Regents for Higher Education and the Interim President of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities concur in this recommendation, therefore it be resolved that effective June 4th, 2021, under the terms and conditions of the CSCU Human Resources Policies for Management and Confidential Professional Personnel, as such policies may be revised from time to time, the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education affirms that Dr. Daryl Riome is hereby appointed Tunxus Community College Campus Chief Executive Officer at the annual rate of $155,250.
Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you. Can we have a
Second.
second? All right. Cohen and Howery, 1 and 2. Any further comment or presentation? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? The resolution is approved. The appointment is made. And warm congratulations and thanks really, and not only to all of you involved in the search, but thanks to these really wonderful, dedicated professionals for assuming these roles at such an important time for our community colleges. We know some of them well, and some we're welcoming as new partners here with really wonderful experiences to bring. So we look forward to the public announcement of these appointments and to spending more time with them and working with them in the days ahead. So thank you. All right, so we have conducted quite a bit of business already here, and we still have more to do. I'm going to ask our president, Dr. Gates, to take the podium, as it were, and to offer us any remarks on the prior business or anything else you'd like to address the board and the community about. Dr. Gates?
Thank you, Chair Fleury. I'd like to begin with a brief update on COVID. This spring, the community colleges are reporting their COVID cases on a monthly basis. Through March 1st, the community colleges confirmed that 79 positive cases were self-reported by their students, 48 of whom were attending classes on campus. In addition, 13 faculty and staff who were working on campus reported positive cases of the virus since the start of the semester on January 25th. The universities have administered more than 25,000 COVID tests with their residential students through last week, with 100 positive cases reported. With the significant improvement in our state's public health measures related to the coronavirus, we are ready as a system to begin planning full operations this fall. By increasing the staffing of departments and offices by late spring, early summer, we can begin to provide a more on-ground services, classes, and better serve our students. Office hours and in-person meetings can also begin to take place on campus. Our campuses have demonstrated that they are safe and low-risk places to work and learn, and I am confident that they will continue to maintain a safe and healthy environment. And I really wish to deeply express my appreciation to those for all the hard work on the campuses to help keep the colleges fully reopened this fall. I'd also like to share that I've received both shots of the COVID-19 vaccine, and I encourage you all to get vaccinated. Okay, on to my next issue. That's my PSA for the COVID vaccine. We have been very busy, as some of you are aware, with the start of the legislative session. We've had what we consider to be productive hearings with the Appropriations Committee and the Appropriations Higher Education Subcommittee. We've also been monitoring bills in the Higher Education Committee and working with our partners at the Connecticut Conference of Independent Colleges and UConn to weigh in on a variety of bills, from sexual assault and mental health challenges for students to bills only impacting CSCU, such as the merger bill. It has been my pleasure to participate in several legislative breakfasts hosted by the community colleges. They were really very excellent exchanges. These breakfasts provide a great opportunity to share updates on the colleges, what we've done, our accomplishments, as well as the challenges to our students. Our students face during the pandemic, and to ask for, very importantly, financial support from those who are attending these breakfasts. I am also pleased again this month to share with you that we've had presentations, as we promised that we would do, in the ASA and the finance committees on progress on the merger. And we look forward to brief presentations today following those committee discussions to ensure that we communicate better and keep everyone as informed as possible. The Connecticut State Community College team is meeting regularly with staff from NECHI to continue our planning and to prepare our June progress report for the commission. In closing, to all the members of the AAPI communities within the CSCU system, we stand in solidarity with you. I know you have been shaken by recent events, but know that we stand with you as essential members of our one CSCU community. The sad truth is that the racist violence we witnessed in Georgia on March 16th, the abhorrent slaying of 8 people in Atlanta, including 6 women, was just one tragic example of rising hatred directed at Asian Americans over the past year. And it is unfortunately centuries in the making. Anti-Asian sentiment has been institutionalized in the United States, from the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 to the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. But regardless of its beginnings, it has gone on long enough. CSCU stands firmly against the forces of AAPI racism and against racism in all of its forms. We remain resolute in our commitment to civil and human rights, and we will continue to call for an end to racism and violence toward all minority groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gates, for the update and for your very, very strong and appropriate and heartfelt statement. It's appreciated and such an important part of your leadership here on our behalf of the system. So thank you. I'm going to take the chair's prerogative here, knowing that there was a request by Dr. Blitz to make a few remarks, and I think this is the best time to do it. So I'll give you the floor for your remarks, Dr. Blitz.
Thank you, Chair Fleury, and I appreciate your adding me to the agenda at this late moment. Two recent events. I'm going to take, I hope, 5 minutes, but of course, as you may know, I'm a philosopher, and a philosopher's 5 minutes may be longer than yours. But
the chair's 5 minutes are 5 minutes, and they're underway.
Two recent events prompt me to state explicitly what and I should add personally, have been thinking for some time. At the last Finance and Infrastructure Committee meeting, Board Member David Jimenez asked what the faculty objections to Students First are, and I provided my point of view, and we had an interesting and I think positive discussion as a result. Secondly, a recent CSU brochure, Putting Students First, prepared by outside consultant Christopher Baldwin, in consultation with two system office senior staff, stated on page 16 that critics of Student First have not proposed any alternatives. As one of those designated as a critic without an alternative, here is mine. All plans have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Students First began in 2017 and has now, in my view, after nearly 4 years, exceeded its useful lifetime. A key feature of Student First is consolidation, and I agree that consolidation is needed, just not the kind envisaged by the plan. I've stated on a number of occasions my view that we need to review and revise Students First, identify its strengths and weaknesses, learn from its accomplishments and failures, to which I now add, and move towards its completion and closure. Firstly, let me deal with its accomplishments that are likely to remain and need to be further consolidated if they are to be effective in reducing costs and increasing equity, which are not immediate and spontaneous results of these changes. Firstly, transforming campus presidents into CEOs. The main advantage of this is not the minimal salary savings, which are small in comparison to overall Student First costs, but rather facilitating sector-wide community college leadership in developing institutional cooperation for redistribution of budgets in the interest of equity and sharing of services for cost savings. I share with other members of the board congratulations to the CEOs who have been appointed today. Secondly, naming 3 regional presidents. Connecticut is known as a state of 169 towns and municipalities and averse to regionalization. The establishment of regional leadership at the community college level could be a model for the rest of the state if it is done economically and wisely as an intermediate level between the central administration, where budget is allocated, and the local campus level, where courses are designated, designed, and taught. Thirdly, establishing an interim community college system or sectorial leadership. The recent naming of an interim president, provost, CFO, vice presidents, and support staff provide the basis for a system office for the community college system, separate from that for the CSUs, and indeed soon to be physically housed apart in New Britain. I should note that all 3 of these accomplishments have been made within the context of the existing accreditation of the 12 community colleges. Secondly, let me next deal with the significant problems I identify. Number 1, over-centralization. The plan has resulted in a significant over-centralization, not just of budget, but of control, including control over curriculum. Though we may disagree on the interpretation of shared services, it is now clear that the central level of the system directly uses or controls $69 million, a total greater than the budget of any community college. Secondly, delocalization. The plan envisages what I term a delocalization by persisting in calling for the elimination of the accreditation of the 12 community colleges and their merger into one. Despite clear opposition by faculty and local constituencies, concerns expressed by NESHE, and possible obstacles at the level of federal student aid if all colleges are merged into one federal aid number. Thirdly, loss of faculty control over curriculum. The plan has resulted in diminishing to a dangerous degree faculty control over curriculum. Teaching occurs in the classrooms, not on Woodland Street, and faculty are the curriculum experts. The numerous awkwardly named and overly fluid transitional committees have not respected faculty expertise or institutional governance, and have alienated faculty by top-down tactics unresponsive to and even disrespectful of faculty concerns. Thirdly, let me deal with 3 ongoing projects. The first is transfer articulation to ensure seamless transition of community college graduates to majors and general education programs at the CSU and other universities. This project, undertaken before Students First, has been relegated to the sidelines to the point that its coordinating council is inactive. Only several hundred have completed it, and it is in need of significant updating as to content. It is clear that faculty, through the Faculty Advisory Committee, will not participate in this program so long as it is seen as a model for top-down campus consolidation and curriculum alignment. Yet it is obviously beneficial to students at both the colleges and universities and should be revived. The second is the Guided Pathways Project, which provides for additional advisors using holistic case management and which is being implemented at a trial basis at 3 community colleges. We need to know how this works, and we need to have metrics in order to better understand its potential benefits. The third is curriculum alignment, supposedly so that there's one system-wide curriculum. So far, just one or a few of many hundreds of programs have been aligned, and the deadline for all is both unrealistic and unnecessary. The current plan calls for hasty endorsement within a few months of curricular plans written without sufficient consideration of the complexities involved. Curricular alignment for its own sake will not result in the desired end of greater equity and may well hamper local adjustments to meet specific student and area needs. My own conclusions are the following. 1, revitalize the TAP programs as a project independent of Students First, using the Faculty Advisory Committee as the basis for a faculty-run council to update and expand the program in concert with relevant system office staff. 2, specify clear metrics to evaluate the success or apply correctives to the Guided Pathways project, to be made independent of Students First and coordinated with the preceding transfer articulation project. 3, end the transitional consolidation and alignment committees, but develop in post-Student First period a mechanism for coordinating faculty and disciplines across the campuses and institutions, for example, by regular conferences now made possible through online meeting technology, with due respect for existing departments and department chairs elected by and responsible to faculty. The argument for continuing Students First is flawed for a number of reasons. There are no real cost savings, only increased budget to the central level at the expense of funding for the campuses where teaching occurs. 2, equity, and in particular closing the achievement gap, is not advanced by aligning curriculum into a one-size-fits-all, irrespective of local differences in student clientele, by socioeconomic and racial ethnic status, and area needs, both business and social. 3, top-down management and micromanagement by the system office and Board of Regents stifles faculty creativity and initiative, and for 3 years has locked both sides in a futile and fruitless conflict. This leads me to a further consideration. With the establishment of a central community college system leadership, the 3 regional presidents, and the designation of the physical locale for the community college system office in New Britain, a split with the Woodland system office is imminent. 1, the New Britain system office for the community college system and the Woodland Street office for the CSU system should be focused on assisting their respective constituent institutions. And I should add, not consolidating the institutions themselves or their needed back office functions, except where mutually agreed in order to share services more economically and effectively. 2, the board should make a decision to limit the size of each of the 2 system offices and delineate more clearly their responsibility to assist but not control their constituent institutions. Higher education functions best bottom up, not top down. 3, further, the board should consider restructuring itself to fully take into account the distinct missions of the college and university sectors, as required by Section 185 of state statutes, perhaps by dividing into distinct college and university sections, including a coordinating mechanism between them, or even 2 boards with a similar coordinating mechanism. Finally, and in conclusion, let me add 2 comments. 1, we need to return to a discussion of principles that unite us, protecting and promoting public higher education as a social good, and the development of policies and plans to meet that end. It is not a matter of saving money by centralizing control, a policy doomed to failure as it misidentifies the strategic goal. And uniformizing curriculum will not magically overcome the achievement gap and promote equity. That has to be done by concerted efforts of faculty in the classroom, supported by student services and administration, taking into account the needs of underrepresented and minority groups, both socioeconomic and racial ethnic. 2, we are approaching a decision as to the new CSU president, as the search process and board and advisory committees have now interviewed the finalists. An added bonus to announcing the completion and closure of Students First is to allow the new president, in consultation with the board, systems leadership, faculty and student advisory committees, and no doubt listening sessions with the various constituencies, to start afresh, unburdened by a long simmering conflict not advantageous to any of the parties. That concludes my remarks. I will make a copy of this available to the secretary of the board so that it may be included in the minutes. And let me add, I welcome your criticisms and your comments, which you can make at this point, or you can send to me by email.
Thank you, Dr. Blitz. We appreciate your raising these issues of concern, and I will ensure that a meeting is set up to work with the Student First committee group so that you can further discuss in detail with those persons who've been working on this effort. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Blitz. Thank you, Dr. Gates. And thank you for the time and effort in preparing the remarks and the proposals and recommendations. I don't want to enter into a full discussion on that item as it's not an agenda item for today, and frankly, open for debate at today's meeting. However, I want to make clear that Dr. Blitz's remarks were I was not aware he would make them headed into today's meeting. So my remarks are not actually responsive directly by design or the absence of design. But I want to talk to the board and our community about circumstances and would be very candid in saying that the perception that I have of the need to make a statement about where we're headed here is driven in part by the great abundance of commentary, not all of which is as constructively delivered as Dr. Blitz's. And that's a distinction that I want to recognize and let him know I appreciate. So forgive me if I take my prerogative a little bit further as chair and just try to step back just a moment. And I want to speak as not only the chair of the board, a role that I take very seriously, as do all of the regents who give their time to this because of its importance to our community and to all of us. But I also speak, though it seems some time ago, as a proud community college product who remembers the names of the professors, the halls, the classes, the classmates, and remembers the experiences. I remember the conversations with the financial aid officers. I remember my work-study program to make a few extra bucks to pay the bills. I remember the pride of wearing our somewhat shocking green robes when we graduated. And I'm also, as my vice chair colleague, Regent Harris knows, a very proud product, Charter Oak State College. And I remember the point fairly well into my career when it became clear that I should go back to school and finish what I started in community college, and found Charter Oak. And Dr. Harris, then the president, advised me about that program and encouraged me to try it. And as rigorous as it was, even I was able to survive it. And I'm proud of that as well. So while there's a great, I think, assumption that members of the board may not appreciate exactly what we're about, perhaps because we're not members of faculty, don't teach a class, are some years out of school. We do remember, and that's why we're here. At the outset of our consideration of the structure of our college system, we received a recurring message from the third-party overseers of our institutions who visit our campuses and determine whether they can maintain their standing as accredited academic institutions. The themes were that individuals and teams at each of these institutions were working earnestly with what they had to contend with, difficult circumstances, innovating at the local level, but sharing systemic challenges that confined these innovations. Nonetheless, graduation rates, despite these innovations and efforts and the dedication of the faculty and staff, were in some cases as low as 7%. The retention was below 50%, in some cases declining. Lack of finances was a top barrier cited not by the accreditors only, but by students when asked why retention and graduation was low. Sufficient faculty, advisors, student support, technology, all cited as deficits that needed to be addressed on an individual campus level. Declining state support was cited by administrators continually striving to do more with less, as we continue to do today. Time and again, among 12 community colleges, these concerns were raised as the red flag by our accreditors. While reserves dwindled, I remember as chair of the Finance Committee, Chairman Balducci continues to remind us of that as he will today. And tuition, the single most important worry of students, went up. This habit, doing what we've always done and turning to students to fund the increasing cost and declining results, was never fair to students. It's easy to blame the state for supporting a declining share of these costs. One might. Many have. But short of advocating for increased funding, which we do continually, the Board of Regents does not decide whether taxpayer dollars go to childcare, safety net, roads, bridges, mental health, law enforcement, public protection, K-12 and its needs, special ed or higher ed. At the same time, other barriers created by our balkanized organization made it harder and more complex than necessary for students and failed to give them the broader support they need to squeeze higher ed into their demanding lives. We needed to shift resources away from parallel administration and towards student services. And that's what we're trying to do. We're accountable to construct a framework that protects local access to higher education, holds the line on tuition, and supports teaching and expanded student services and deeper student services. This framework needs to balance the cost of operating against the capacity of students and taxpayers to pay. The cost of operating is defined primarily by union negotiated wages and benefits and by the administrative structure that supports faculty and students. That's really it. So as challenging as they are, the current negotiation of the union contracts and the ongoing community college merger will determine the cost of running the colleges and universities for the foreseeable future. Draw a straight line between those costs and the revenues received from taxpayers and students. You can call that a minus sign and see what ends up on the bottom line. When costs exceed revenue, the system is not sustainable as constructed and must either raise tuition or cut services or both, unless there's a better way to spend $1.2 billion per year. I have to talk about the contract. Our representatives are going to continue to negotiate in good faith and abide by the closed-door ground rules to which we agreed. They're the negotiating team. We are not. Despite the fact that others have disregarded those norms in efforts to undermine our position and our team, our negotiating team will conduct itself that way. However, the board does have a right, and I think an obligation to the public to express our situation and our intent with regard to the contract. as part of a broader picture. We simply seek a reasonable agreement that enables our management team, including the campus leaders who helped craft the proposals that are on the table, to provide excellent education and services that students can afford and that can be sustained in every community we serve. Our negotiating team has to be guided by a set of principles in our negotiations and is. We serve our students first and foremost. We focus on ensuring affordable access to quality education for Connecticut students with a focus on serving our underserved students. And we work to create an operational and educational environment that ensures we meet or exceed accreditation requirements. We support fair pay, equity, and tools necessary to serve our students and ensure their success. That means we support fair pay, equity, and tools for our faculty and staff. As a matter of good governance and shared governance, we have heard faculty concerns about our initial teaching load proposal, and we have set it aside in the past week. That said, we must continue to prioritize instruction of students and to advance the key wage and managerial drivers that impact costs to taxpayers and students. There have been claims that our contract proposals put accreditation at risk. Nothing in our proposal ever has or ever will place accreditation or shared governance at risk. We seek to eliminate one of the most consistent concerns raised by our accreditors when they assess our individual institutions, which is our precarious financial position. That is the accreditation risk of our time. On students first, Connecticut State Community College. The ongoing merger of our community college administrative structure, and the implementation of guided pathways, a suite of policies including increased student advising services, is not a contractual matter. It's not part of those negotiations, but it's important. It is critical to the future of our colleges and universities and our students. Our schools cannot achieve this alone, but under a single accreditation, we can bring all of our resources and talents together to ensure a stronger, brighter future for colleges and students. This plan replaces 12 parallel full campus administrations in the small state of Connecticut with a smaller shared administration, itself larger than any individual administration, but combined on net much smaller, and uses some of those savings to expand services for students on every community college campus, not in a central office in Hartford or New Britain. This plan replaces 12 parallel campus administrations with the smaller administration, and the reduction in the cost of administration allows us to hire 175 more student advisors, all located at campuses, all serving local students, without regard, frankly, to which budget line they're on, something I, as a community college student, could not have cared less about, so long as I was getting the service and support I needed. Where 750 students today compete for the time of one advisor, that advisor will soon serve just 250. Still a lot, but 500 fewer. Guided pathways, policies, and practices are a proven way to ensure students have a high-quality education that meets their needs. Connecticut students deserve that. Plan brings continuity and seamlessness to everything from enrollment to curriculum. Curriculum is being designed by qualified faculty who are committed to their work and their students. The ongoing dialogue about how to do that best must continue. By aligning programs, we make it easier for students ultimately to take classes at multiple campuses and to transfer more easily to our universities, Charter Oak, and private institutions in our state. Curriculum decisions are still in the hands of faculty as they work together in statewide departments to meet the needs of our students and employers. We're already saving significant money through the consolidation, which gets repurposed for student services and relieves pressure on tuition. None of that is coming at the expense of teaching faculty. Since 2018, we've achieved $35 million in cost reductions. Almost all of that has been through voluntary attrition, and that attrition has been among non-teaching professionals. No faculty positions have been eliminated as part of the plan. Having said that, as colleges struggle to meet budgets based on enrollment drops, positions are left vacant, unfilled. Our investment in advising ideally will directly help to retain enrollment and therefore students and support the case for more faculty positions at our colleges. I need to talk about tuition, which is on our agenda today. As part of the framework we're creating, this board is not going to entertain a tuition increase for our students this year. This will be discussed in the Finance Committee report. It is an easy decision in principle. It is very hard in practice. That's our policy goal on which we will act today. But witness all the interests, constituencies, variables, and voices we hear in a complex organization. It has a risk. It has a few risks, and here are a couple. The consolidation could be blocked or reversed. All the savings it has and can achieve could be lost. The state can continue to reduce its share of the funding that supports Connecticut State's colleges and universities, forcing unplanned cost reductions or, God forbid, more tuition increases. Our labor contracts, which drive 85% of total expenses, could cost more than can be sustained, forcing tuition to go up. The effects of the pandemic on student experiences in higher education could last longer and be more dramatic than we anticipate, so that even our federal help won't be enough to weather COVID and its after effects. These things all interconnect and interrelate. They're not binary, but they have a direct relationship to one another. Our strong position against a tuition increase depends on the right mix coming together. We must continue to shift limited resources from management to student services and teaching. We must have a fair and workable contract that supports great teaching, but contains expense increases. We must have sufficient state funding from the legislature. We must have a continued recovery from the pandemic and help from the federal government for that recovery. These are the ideals behind everything the Board of Regents has been doing and continues to do. A more student-oriented infrastructure and way of operating that respects the budgets, time, and life-wide demands facing students of all backgrounds. A much accelerated contribution to the career prospects and talent needs of our employers, as well as the futures of the employees who now study in our system and will. An end to the assumption that we throw up our hands about costs and expect more money from taxpayers and/or students to cover the gap. An organization that moves resources away from administration and towards student services as a share of total expenses. Forgive me for the extended comments. These are really complex issues, and bringing them together is our job. We have to think of them in a coherent, cohesive way, and that's what I try to do and have tried to do here. We seek partnership with our talented and committed faculty and staff and our political leadership to place students at the center of all these determinations. We do welcome a continued conversation, which is why we listen, and we listen to hear and witness our recent approach at the bargaining table. We take action when we think we can lead a better conversation. With that, I'm going to conclude my remarks and ask for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second. If I may make just one small request for a change, I believe it's on page 2 where the list of attendees is included, and I'm listed as chair of the FAC. I'm actually now vice chair of the FAC, and Professor Sasenker is now chair. We rotate after 1 year.
I doubt
minor correction.
Any objection to that friendly and appropriate amendment? Thank you. Could I have a motion as amended?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you. We have a consent agenda, and we always, of course, before acting on anything, offer the opportunity for any commentary. So I'm not rushing matters, just following protocol and requesting a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
May I have a second? I think I do. Any presentation, discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Consent agenda is approved. Thanks for all the good work embedded therein. Time for our committee reports. We have a report from Chair Harris from Academic and Student Affairs.
Thank you. I'm going to try to be brief, but I think what I have to say is very important, and I want all members of the board to hear it. Especially, it addresses a comment we heard this morning from Professor Robin, and so I think it's significant that, or important that you hear this background information. At the March ASA meeting, the committee had a presentation on the alignment of math and English, which has acronym ACME, and that's what Dr. Robin spoke to this morning. It was an opportunity for our committee members to have some professional development before considering a policy in some time in the near future. We were briefed by Jeremy Martin from the Data Center at the University of Texas, Austin, and Gretchen Schmidt from the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement. The presentation provided information particularly on math, not on English at this point in time. I want you to know there is a YouTube link in the agenda if someone wants to hear the complete presentation. There are also some slides in the agenda, and I'm not going to try sharing them because I know I will mess them up, and there's no time for that right now. But they do appear beginning on page 171. What we heard is there are three things that are happening in math and English that are showing results. The first is what we call the co-requisite support. This means that students, instead of enrolling in a developmental math or English class, which is very often not given for credit towards graduation, you can earn credit, but you don't use that in your program, that they enroll instead in the first gateway course, which means the first, like English 101 or the first math course. And this co-requisite is required for students that enter with deficits in that particular area, math or English. Another thing that has been learned across the country is that standardized placement tests really do not work in placing students in the appropriate course. Instead, they have learned that looking at the high school GPA does help place students. And this is what is being used, again, in many states across the country. Particularly in mathematics, it's also been learned that courses should align with the career direction a student wants to take. So, for example, only STEM students would really be required as their first course to take college algebra in preparation for calculus. And there is a chart in your board book that shows that there are different options. For example, a student that wants to major in psychology or human or sociology might be better off taking statistics as that first course instead of college algebra or calculus. So those are the three components that are being considered. About 30 states are recommending or requiring this approach, not across the board, but some require it at all their community colleges, others are recommending it. What we see in the research thus far, and the reason I say thus far is this approach is fairly new, and therefore we don't have a lot of data on graduation rates. But students actually pass that first English and math course, which you need to progress at a community college, using the co-requisite model. And in your book, you see data from Tennessee, the Tennessee Board of Regents. This approach was first introduced there statewide about 5 years ago. On page 177 in your board book, you see the percentage of students in Tennessee enrolled in various types of math course. I mentioned the GPA and its correlation with success in college, a much higher correlation, as I said before, than standardized tests. Why is this important to consider? This is an equity issue. Our data shows that in Connecticut, our minoritized students have lower pass rates in gateway courses. This means they can never earn a degree. And I know when I was working with early childhood programs at the community colleges, students would wait to the end to take math very often because they were afraid they couldn't pass it. And then they never graduated because they had to have that math course to graduate. We introduced changes in developmental education following the enactment of PA 1240. And the only place that, looking at the data I saw last, the only place we saw improvement in passing that gateway course was using the co-requisite model. I haven't seen recent data, and I'm going to request this when we discuss ACME at a later time. But it shows that what we have been doing hasn't achieved the improvement that we wanted. And that, therefore, we have created or have not eliminated artificial barriers for many of our minoritized students to graduate. What is particularly important, you heard about guided pathways this morning. We need to marry a number of initiatives together. Guided pathways married with this approach does provide a roadmap for students to move towards a degree. You pass English, you continue to work with your advisor, make sure that you stay in school because they know when you're not attending classes, and they make sure the faculty person gets back to you. It all relies on this linking of faculty, student affairs together so that we really support our students. You're going to hear a lot more about this policy in the future, but I wanted you to have this background. And I know we've had faculty involvement. The policy was circulated last fall. There have been many, many, many comments. Those are being taken seriously. And I think the new policy, once we see it, will reflect many of the changes, will reflect many of the comments we've already heard. I'm meeting next week with Regent Balducci, with Dr. Blitz and Dr. Sasenker and others that they want us to meet with to talk about this in greater detail. So we are listening. We will continue to listen before we bring a policy in front of you, but we want you to know that this is an important issue and one that you eventually will be weighing in on. So I thank you for your time. I know it took more than I should have, but it is really important for you to have that background.
Thank you. Thank you for the comprehensive report on that, and I'm glad that there are conversations ahead to continue the important discussion. The comments this morning were appreciated by me as one who was always battling the math demons at the college level. So thank you for being so considerate of how students come into their experiences and the expectations of what they ought to be ready for and how we help them if they're not. Let me move now to the Finance and Infrastructure report. Chairman Balducci, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Compliments on your comments earlier before the board. The Finance Committee met on March 10th, and we received 2 information reports and comments from, excuse me, several people I think today will be worthwhile hearing. It seems to be the day for some little in-depth commentary. We received 2 information reports, and we have 1 action item dealing with tuition and fees, which you had mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman. The first information item was an update on the community college merger. Given the importance of the work, instead of me trying to summarize it, I thought it would be more important to ask Kerry Kelly, the college CFO, to provide a full report, a brief version to the members, full members of the board. So with that, Kerry, if you would, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman Balducci. Good afternoon. As you know, the Board of Regents adopted Students First in 2018 as a way to combat declining enrollments, unacceptable student outcomes, and to provide fiscal stability. This is an update of the original fiscal projection done in 2018, and it contains actuals for the period 2018 to 20, estimates based on the mid-year spending plan for the current year, and a 5-year forecast for the period FY22 through 26. Currently, 6 out of our 12 colleges have negative reserves. The colleges have been experiencing declining enrollment since 2014, and that's been further exacerbated by the pandemic. Enrollments are down 31%. We have a structural imbalance. Our revenues do not keep pace with expenses. The majority of our revenue, 70%, comes from state appropriations. And though the General Assembly has been generous and maintained support, while many other states have faced decreasing support, this level of support does not keep pace with our expenditures. We know that we can't raise tuition to solve our financial problems without sacrificing affordability and our commitments to access and equity. Most of our expenditures are fixed costs, and they're very difficult to reduce. 84% of our expenses are for faculty and staff in the form of wages and fringe benefits. Operating 12 campuses means there is a lot of duplication across the colleges. The status quo is broken and unsustainable. Next slide. The next slide shows a comparison of our baseline revenues and expenditures. This is what the future looks like if we take no action, if we don't unify into a single college. The stacked bars show our revenues, the dark blue shows our tuition, and the orange and gray are the funds we receive from the state. The orange is our block grant, and the gray is our fringe benefit support. The key to this chart is the green line. This shows our actual and forecast expenditures. As you can see, if we maintain the status quo, our expenditures outpace our revenues. And by 2026, this produces a deficit of $43 million. The status quo is unsustainable. Next slide. Students First and PACT, our debt-free community college program, provide a pathway to fiscal stability. It's a revenue and expenditure solution that improves student outcomes and helps us better fulfill our mission. We've taken a conservative approach to our revenue forecast. We're projecting a baseline enrollment that has a minor bounce back next year, but has an overall negative outlook through FY26. We attract new students through PACT and improve our retention of existing students through guided pathways. Through Students First, we're able to reduce our non-student facing expenditures. We do this by eliminating duplication of services, by aligning staff with our organizational needs, by implementing shared services, and by achieving economies of scale. The graph on the right shows how Students First improves fiscal stability. This analysis disregards the federal COVID relief funding. Here, we're focusing on the net results from operations. This is the difference between revenues and expenditures. A negative value means expenditures exceed revenues. The gray line shows the baseline or status quo fiscal results. It does not break even, with increasing annual deficits. The green dotted line shows how implementing Students First improves outcomes. And by 2024, we have permanent positive fiscal results. I want to focus a little bit on enrollments. This chart shows from 2014 to 2026. And the blue bars on the left show the actual enrollment. As you can see, in 2014, we had a robust enrollment of 33,800. And we've experienced a 31% enrollment decline. The orange bars show our baseline enrollment projections into the future. The green line shows the baseline enrollment trend over time. So you can see that in FY22, there's a little pandemic bounce back. However, the slope of that line continues. It's a negative outlook. Under the status quo, our enrollments are at a threshold that is fiscally unsustainable and jeopardizes our mission. However, through Students First, we implement guided pathways and retain more of our students, adding to enrollment. This is depicted in the gray bars. And we build new enrollment through PACT, our debt-free community college program, and that is depicted in the yellow bars. Next slide. Guided Pathways is an investment in improving student success. It enhances persistence and retains our students. It implements the holistic case management advising model and will achieve a 250-to-1 student-to-advisor ratio. We'll be hiring 175 advisors over 3 years, and we're well underway. We'll have 35 advisors this spring and have it rolled out to 3 campuses. The chart on the right compares the cost of implementing guided pathways with the anticipated revenue achieved through retention. The orange bars show the cost and the blue bars show the revenue. As you can see, this is a significant investment and particularly upfront. But by 2025, guided pathways starts to pay for itself. And we see a net benefit to the bottom line. And perhaps more importantly, more of our students will be achieving their educational goals. Building the one college has costs. Critics have said that abandoning Students First will achieve enough savings to solve the structural fiscal problems of the community colleges. That is simply not true. As you can see in the chart on the right, the blue bars reflect the administrative costs, which include a variety of things, including the Connecticut State executive staff, the 12 staff of the regions. It includes over $400,000 in the current year for faculty stipends to help align the curriculum with even more money next year. It includes over $900,000 next year to convert 36 classrooms to high flex classrooms, 3 classrooms per year. It includes funding over 4 years for an initiative with Achieving the Dream to engage in evidence-based institutional improvement to enhance student success and close the achievement gap. These investments allow us to build a structure that strategically manages the administrative savings as shown in the orange bars. The first 4 orange bars on the left show the actual attrition savings we've achieved, as well as our forecasts. You can see by the table on the right that we've been experiencing attrition of non-faculty staff. Can we go to the next slide? You can see by the table on the right that we've been experiencing attrition of non-faculty staff. We've been able to capitalize on this attrition because we have a plan for the future. Through Students First, we've been able to replace vacancies with lower cost positions aligned with our new design. For example, as vacancies occur among the campus presidents, they've been replaced with lower cost campus CEOs. When brought to scale across the 12 campuses, this alone will save over $1.5 million annually with fringe benefits. And these savings are recurring savings. They build cumulatively into the out years. By unifying into one college, we eliminate duplicated positions across the 12 campuses as vacancies occur. And through Students First, we're implementing shared services for back office functions like HR and purchasing, allowing us to achieve economies of scale. In conclusion, our fiscal forecast of the future has changed since originally envisioned in 2018. The original forecast projected fiscal solvency by FY22, and under the plan, we will have positive fiscal results in FY22 because of the use of federal COVID relief funds. But due to the impact of the pandemic and the revised enrollment assumptions, will not achieve permanent fiscal stability until FY24. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Carrie, thank you very much for that. I think it was quite informative when we met as the Finance Committee, and that brief presentation, I think, was very helpful to other members of the board. Thank you. The second information item we had to do dealt with federal stimulus funds that have been provided to the CSCU institutions. In fact, the day after our Finance Committee meeting, President Biden signed the American Recovery Plan Act, which provided our institutions with a larger amount of dollars. Including an estimate of the value of that third round, CSCU will receive approximately $350 million in stimulus dollars. And we'll be able to expend those sometime, those for expenses between March of 2020 and through September of 2023. But of those $350 million, excuse me, $150 million must be paid to students, which is a positive thing. That's what we're here about. That's what Matt had indicated earlier. Our first job are students accessible to colleges and the universities. While the remainder can be used for lost revenues from pandemic expenses and other recovery efforts. Including payments are being sent out this week, up to $60 million in grants to students. So we should expect further updates as we move along through the school year, and I will give them to you as I receive them. The committee also approved for full board consideration a one-year tuition plan freeze for the colleges and universities in Charter Oak. Let me repeat that. I know Matt said it, I'll just repeat it. A one-year freeze in tuition and general fees. The proposal calls for freezing tuitions at most of our colleges and universities. And there may be some modest fee increases and also elimination of some of the fees that we already have. One fee that is proposed to change is the UPass fee. We need to raise that from the $12 to $40 to meet the requirements of the Department of Transportation to be able to continue this program. At the $40 rate, it's still a huge bargain for students using the facilities available to them by the DOT. Several smaller fee adjustments are proposed for the individual universities. They're reducing or eliminating online fees, which is a big one since many of the courses are being offered that way. And in the case of Central, they're reducing and restructuring meal plans, which is a great job by them and for the students. Overall, this package will preserve our affordability and our competitive position as the most affordable options for the Connecticut students to pursue a degree or a certificate. It's especially important now, given the profound disruption to our students' lives that the pandemic has brought on. In the long run, we can only maintain this kind of tuition discipline if we can control our operating costs and maintain state support, as was mentioned by Carrie and was mentioned by our chairman of the board. With that, Mr. Chairman, I gladly move adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. Could we have a second, and then we'll do any questions? Thank you. It's moved and seconded.
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? Yes, Dr. Sasenko.
Hi, thank you. So I just want to draw our attention to the fact that many of the financial projections for Students First rely very heavily on the success of academic reform. And the likelihood of that, that result should be informed by the people who are in contact with our students every day. And what has happened over time, I think, is that this board has lost contact with our institutions and with the people who serve students. And it has been made worse, I think, by this pandemic. So that, you know, last month, we tried to accommodate everything and our comment section went way over time. This month, people who wanted to address the board weren't able to address the board. But, you know, I'm really glad that we're going to be working in a, you know, moving in a better direction. But the fact is that we don't even necessarily comply with the statutes at the moment that call for joint meetings between faculty and the board and FAC and the SAC, right? And that is sorely needed at a time where there are obstacles to connection to the people who can weigh in on the plausibility of these sorts of things. So I want to really encourage that yes, these meetings that we're going to be having in the future are going to be really helpful, but I think we need to do something much more significant to talk about whether or not this plan is in fact viable, because I hear you, Chairman Fleury, when you talk about the hopes that we have for the system, but there are many people suggesting that these hopes are not realistic. So, you know, we need to talk about whether or not our guided pathways efforts will in fact have the benefit of guided pathways principles built into their development. We need to talk about whether the way that we are using co-requisite courses in fact serves the aims of equity, and engage with faculty about that. So I'm very glad that we're focusing on not, you know, raising tuition, and all of that is wonderful. But I think there are a lot of things that we need to call into question, including the idea that increased support from the state is a burden that we can't tolerate, given that the needs of our students. So, I just want to make sure that we say that, because while this is a financial report, it definitely takes a lot of academic projections into consideration.
Thank you for your comments. I certainly appreciate the relationship and between what we do, what our outcomes are, and the financial aspects of it. The question on the floor with regard to tuition is the recommendation. I want to see whether there are any further questions or comments on the recommendation to freeze tuition. Okay. I'll just say that in the average student's life, I would think that this is a topic that would elicit a tremendous amount of interest, and that I would anticipate that people at every level of the system who are concerned with the needs of students would want to get behind this idea, and I'm sure the board will. So I want to acknowledge the really the point that Dr. Sasenker made, which in a different way I made, that our ability to hold the line on tuition, which is one important, very important aspect of success for students, is contingent on a number of variables that include the academic assumptions that are not small, not trivial, need to be addressed, need to be challenged, and continue to be developed and will evolve, but also on the questions, as the chairman said, of state appropriations, about the cost of operating the system, administering the system, et cetera. And, you know, we get that. We have to acknowledge that. But we also have to take a stand, which the chairman is recommending today, that I wholeheartedly and enthusiastically support, that we're not going to make the assumption of the fallback position that we start with raising tuition as a way of backing into a balanced budget. It's not going to work. So you'll have my vote in support. You have a motion and a second. I don't think anybody else had comments. So with that, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Okay,
I abstain.
carries. I'm sorry, did someone? I didn't see you.
I think it was
I
Audrey
abstain.
who abstained.
Audrey
Oh, yes.
abstaining.
Abstaining? Okay, thank you. Duly noted, Audrey. Thank you. Okay, is that the conclusion of the finance report, Mr. Chairman?
That concludes my finance report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. And thank you for the comments, Dr. Sasenka.
Thank you. Okay, I have nothing to report from exec committee. I believe that HR and admin has done a lot of work today with all the appointments, and has nothing else to report. So unless there's further business, and I'm not aware of any, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn and see if I can get a second on that one.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.